but they might want to do it after you nail every pick
32
of the first
for
round.
32.
Well, 31 this year because the Dolphins
Correct.
don't have one.
Yep.
But we didn't even nail the number of picks. So we're off to a bad start here.
Oh, yeah, baby, that's right. It's getting close. NFL draft time. Yes, I do know there's 31 picks in the first round. All right, I misspoke and said 32. It still seems weird. It still feels like they should have, de facto just let somebody else move into the first round.
Totally.
Right? It's just a number. Okay, so the second round starts at pick 33 like it always does, right? And then we have a team. I don't even understand why not just have 32. But either way, the Dolphins are not getting their first round pick because – yes, that's right. You heard it here first. They tried to illegally obtain Sean Payton and Tom Brady.
What?
We said that over a year ago, and
knew
nobody released it to the public until August. Not until, the powers on ESPN said it, and then everyone's like, oh, wait, those idiots on NBC, Sims was actually right.
Yeah.
So
it was like you said it to the public, but it wasn't released to the public for another 3 months.
Right. No, me and Florio were looked at like, the idiots. They're just off the chains there at Peacock. They don't know what they're talking
They
about.
waited for people to forget, and then they were like, we have something new to report. No one has reported this.
It's new. Breaking news.
Remember Chris
But
saying
what's
that?
up, everybody? It's Chris Sims Unbuttoned. Ahmed Fareed is here hosting the show as usual.
Yep.
And we have a special guest today, our man Jay Croucher.
Jay. Welcome, Jay. I always clap for everything.
Jay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep. Jay's here today, courtesy of NBC Sports, BetMGM. He is the smartest betting person I know in the world.
That's my title.
Yeah, it is. That's the official title, NBC. Right. And we're going to pick his brain about the draft here today and have some fun.
Yeah, so some of your credentials, Jay. So last year at this time, let me get this straight. You were the head trader at PointsBet.
Yep.
And Pete is putting the rundown here. A question for you, which I imagine is probably true. The NFL draft was maybe one of the most, if not the most stressful big event that you do every year as a head trader. Is that true?
Yeah, it's a shambles. It's a complete shambles just because it's not really based off anything. These markets, it's all just based on speculation and text messages and things coming through to WhatsApp group threads.
Right.
Whereas when the Heat play the Bucks tonight, line's 11.5. There's so much information and data that goes into that line.
Yeah.
When the Eagles play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, there's so much information. There's offensive, defensive
Tangible
ratings.
things to go off of.
This is just all in the air. It's just floating around. You got to figure out what's real, what's not. Just jumping at shadows all the time.
Yeah.
Moving prices really aggressively because you're scared.
Right.
And that's how it works.
So how do you approach it? How far do your connections go in this world? I mean, I know you have connections with NFL teams, so how do you kind of assess things? You go a little bit off of other gambling friends, other markets. How does it all work for you?
Yeah, so it's a strange world. It's mainly about just figuring out, what's true and what's not. So a lot of these markets, they'll move because someone's dad's best friend's uncle was at a party and the girlfriend of the backup safety on the Panthers told him that Will Levis is definitely going 1. And then someone lights up the group threads that, guys, the mail is in. Levis to Carolina, it's done.
Right.
Just off of that. And so sifting through, I got a text last year, a few weeks before the draft, with a really odd specific story that I won't get into, but the upshot was that Trayvon Walker's going 1.
Right.
And at the time, Trayvon Walker was plus 600 to go 1. So I load up the bet slip. I'm about to bet it. And then I get a message from a guy at the company I worked at previously in marketing being like, hey, I hear Trayvon Walker's going 1. And then he tells me the exact same story. And I'm like, well, if the random guy in marketing is getting the number 1 draft scoop, this can't be true. It just can't be true.
Right.
Turns out it was true.
Turns out it's true.
You just don't know.
I know.
It's calculated guesswork.
Vegas seemed true last year.
Oh my gosh.
They were good last year. For whatever reason, as much as I said this whole year to Ahmed, I'm going to listen to Vegas this year when it comes out to it. I don't want to listen to him right now. I do think it's different than last year.
Yeah.
Just from my sense of people in the NFL that there's more variables this year in this draft, and some question marks about some of the top players, and other guys have fallen, and the evaluations have been all over the place. So am I crazy to think that it seems more all over the place than other years?
It's definitely all over the place.
Okay.
I don't think anyone has any idea what's happening outside of Bryce Young going 1.
Right.
Probably. And even that was thrown into some doubt yesterday. I still think
Thank you, Reddit.
Yeah, thank you, Reddit. I still think Bryce Young's going to go 1.
Yes, he is.
But after that, no one really knows what Houston is going to do at 2.
Yeah.
Right now, Tyree Wilson is the favorite.
Right.
He's plus 120, so that's no lock
Yeah, sure.
whatsoever. It's weird because last year, should have been more all over the place because there weren't any quarterbacks at the top of the draft.
Right.
And normally in drafts, quarterbacks, they like give you anchors. They give you polls. It's like, all right, well, this team's going to take quarterback. This is the 1, 2, 3 quarterback on the board, and we work around that. This year, no one has any grasp of like it feels like CJ Stroud should be the second quarterback off the board.
I think he is on everybody's film, but
Yeah.
it's the other stuff that is going to make him fall.
Yeah, but now Will Levis is a heavy favorite to be
Right.
taken before CJ Stroud, which
Right.
I don't understand, but that's the word that's out there.
Well, I think this is what happened, at least in my just world of the NFL, and I think I alluded a little this to Ahmed earlier in the week, or at least last week, because I'm with you. I mean, again, I don't go into personality or knowing the guy when I do my evaluations, but the things I've heard from people, in the know in the NFL is that, the Texans, there is a huge wanting of Tyree Wilson, but if they went quarterback, it sounds like it's more Levis or Anthony Richardson. And that's the same for the Colts, where it's those two names are thrown out. This whole testing thing with CJ Stroud has thrown everybody scared of him, everybody. So that's where, to your point, you're right. The quarterback thing this year, nobody being perfect. Hendon Hooker's with the knee. Anthony Richardson, raw projection. Levis, we see the tools, but there's things they got to work on, and it's inconsistent. And I think that makes it even crazier, to your point, too.
Yeah, here are the numbers for the second overall pick. You got Wilson there, plus 135. Levis at plus 220 as we speak, and Will Anderson Jr. plus 300. Are those numbers you're seeing elsewhere too, Jay? Or?
I mean, they move all over the place.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Will Levis was minus 150 to go 2 overall, and now he's plus 220. I think the one thing that has really happened over the past few days is that it seems more and more likely that Houston are going to go defense at 2. And I think that was the presumption that, well, they can't go into year 3 of the Davis Mills era. They have to take a quarterback.
Yeah.
I think they probably will end up with a new quarterback,
Yes.
but now there are other options. Now they could take a quarterback later. They could look for Hendon Hooker. They
Right.
could trade for Mac Jones
Exactly.
or Trey Lance.
Sure.
There are more options, and if they don't like the guy at 2, which if Will Levis is the number 2 guy on their board, they probably don't like the guy at 2.
Right.
And so it seems more and more like it's going to be defense, and it's probably going to be Tyree Wilson.
That would be my logic.
Yep.
And again, that's what I've been led to believe. Like I told you, I had a feel that the coaching staff, D'Amico Ryan, they want their Nick Bosa for their defense. And to me, where I get into the conversation, and to me that makes sense. Most years, like what you said, is the logical way. Let's get our quarterback now, and we'll address. But here in a year where, again, I don't think there's a perfect quarterback, and this is the only perfect pass rusher in the draft. I think you take the chance here and get him and go, okay, we got our guy, that's for sure, rather than the other way around of going, wait, we get a quarterback and we go, well, I don't know who we're going to find as a pass rusher now, right? To where, to your example, you get Tyree now we're at pick 12. We got other picks in the second round. If we want to move up to pick 7 or 8 or whatever else to get the quarterback, or maybe one just falls at 12, then they're there sitting pretty and okay. And I get the sense that that's what's going to happen too. But
they
we'll
got
see.
some options there. I want to dig a little bit deeper into what happened yesterday with Will Levis.
Yeah,
'cause
let's
I think
do it.
that is
It's
fascinating.
crazy.
So
It's
basically,
crazy that Reddit can do that.
So Reddit did it
Yeah.
because there are a lot of things on Reddit that are true.
Yes,
And people know
sure.
these are just human beings that have connections with people out there. And so this was on the subreddit Sportsbook, a good place to post this if you want to move some lines.
Well, I love Reddit too when you talk about it with older people. Have you talked about Reddit with anybody plus 50 years
I
old?
feel like I'm borderline.
Well,
like,
yeah, we
too old
are.
to
We're
talk
up
about
there.
Reddit.
But like when my dad, he's like, "Oh, there's Reddit, like Reddit. I don't get it. Like, who are they? Why are they breaking news?" And I'm like, they're
John Reddit.
not breaking any news. It's a chat forum where people discuss things, Dad.
Like a message board
Right.
back in the day. Will Levis currently plus 4,000 is what this poster said. Plus 4,000 to be the first overall pick. Well, ladies and gentlemen, he's telling friends and family Carolina will in fact take him on Thursday. You are welcome. So telling everyone to place their bets as we speak. And a lot of people did that because the odds moved significantly. And so, Jay, I want you to put yourself back in the position of head trader. And you get a rumor like that, and you see what the numbers did. I mean, we go from plus 5,000 to plus 400 just in the matter of a night. How are you reacting to that rumor on Reddit?
Yeah, well, the first thing is, what a huge day for user Sale Agreeable 2834. Everyone's talking about Jimmy Butler scoring 56 on the Bucks. This guy had an even better day.
Yeah, it might be just a one-hit wonder there.
Yeah, just an absolute banner day for that guy. But, I mean, yeah, like it's laughable. And I think with this kind of stuff, you have to sift through, like, what's real, what's not. The Carolina Panthers, they really trade up with all of that stuff to take the guy who's 4th or 5th quarterback on a lot of people's boards.
Right.
Like, it just never really passed the smell test. But in terms of why the price moves, is that it doesn't take much money to move these markets. Like,
it doesn't take much, huh?
not much at all.
Like an NFL game would take a lot.
Yeah,
right?
an NFL game, like, you're having to bet minimum 5 figures generally to move an NFL line. And you have
Gotcha.
to be marked as a sharp bettor.
Gotcha.
With this kind of stuff, you can bet $200 on
And it can
Will
change
Levis,
the
and
line.
it'll change the line
It will.
immediately because traders don't know what they don't have access to the information that's 100% right. They don't know. They're jumping at shadows a lot of the time, and they're just moving aggressively because you don't want to be the trader or the company that laid all this money on Will Levis at 20
trying to
to
cover
1.
their own ass.
Yeah, so that's basically it. So
Right.
you see these really aggressive movements. I think this is just nonsense. I would be baffled if Will Levis went 1. I'd be absolutely floored.
Oh, I think we all would. Yeah, that's not happening. 2 possibilities, certainly.
Sure.
I still don't buy it. I won't. I don't think Will Levis starts till 4, and that's the conversation there.
Yep.
You know, but
well, off of that,
yeah.
I think one of the more interesting bets at the moment is you can bet on the second quarterback to be drafted. So Bryce Young will go 1, we expect. And then second quarterback, Will Levis is the heavy favorite. He's minus 275.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud is plus 250. And I wonder when everything is said and done, like Stroud was minus 400 to go 1 like 3 weeks ago.
Right.
And so when all this is said and done, is CJ Stroud really going to go after Will Levis? Is the team not going to trade up to 3 and take Stroud if he's sitting there? A team like Tennessee or just anyone can trade up to 3, or the Colts could take him at 4. I would be shocked if CJ Stroud really slid, just based on everything coming into the draft.
I'm with you. Now that coming off, everything into the draft is still all the film related stuff, right? So, and I think there's not much argument there, as I kind of discussed with you a little bit on Monday, Ahmed. It's just that most people I talk to, I mean, it's slam dunk. Just film alone, CJ Stroud is definitely 1 or 2, right? But yes, I'm actually more on I think he is going to fall out of the top 5.
Okay.
I think just because of, I know how important, and we kind of hit on this a little on Monday, is these personality processing tests. These S2, right, is the famous one out there right now. And, as I said on Monday a little bit, they don't predict success, but so far they've been pretty damn good in predicting failure, right? And I think he's got a number, and again, don't shoot me, I'm just a messenger, that predicts it's not going to go good. And I think that scares teams to death, right? NFL teams by nature, some of them, they're conservative anyways. And then they get a number that's like, whoa, it's pretty much 100%. Once you go below this number, it doesn't work. They look at that and go, well, shit, am I going to get fired on something that I know is 100% like going to happen? And that's where I think there's, the risk or the scaredness of drafting CJ Stroud in that.
Which, if that does happen to CJ Stroud,
Yeah.
like I said on Monday, no one's going to take that test anymore. It's like, you get a 98, that's fine, but it doesn't mean you're going to be great. You get an 18 or a 20, that's bad. So why even take this anymore? I want to go to the third pick.
Yeah.
Because I think that's really interesting, too, because you have a team there that might not want to stay there. And so now you're not just trying to place a need with the Arizona Cardinals. You're like, all right, who may trade up? Who may they like? And so the Eds, as we currently have them right now, these could change. They probably have changed by the time you're watching this. Tyree Wilson, the favorite to go 3rd overall as well, at plus 300. But then you got Will Anderson right behind him. You got C.J. Stroud tied with Will Anderson at plus 350. Paris Johnson, a tackle off the board at plus 400. Then you got a couple quarterbacks there in Richardson and Levis, and Jalen Carter pops up for the first time at plus 1,400. So, yeah, how do the 3rd overall pick odds look to you?
So I think with all these markets, like, you got to play the domino game. So Bryce Young will go 1, 2. Now it looks like defense, and looks like Tyree Wilson most likely to Houston. And then at 3, like the 2 big pieces of, I guess, mail that I've gotten around this draft, 2 big things. 1, Houston don't like CJ Stroud for whatever reason. Same agent as Deshaun Watson.
But agreed.
That is out there. And then the other thing that's out there is that Arizona no one wants to trade up for 3. Arizona are kind of stuck with this pick at the moment. So, like, that could change. Like, a team, if all the quarterbacks are there, maybe someone trades up out of nowhere for 3. But otherwise, it seems like they're either going to go defense and Will Anderson if Tyree's gone, or they're going to draft Paris Johnson Jr.
I know.
So
could be.
Those are the ones in play. In terms of like a bet, you can find out there Anthony Richardson at 15-1 to go 3, just on the thought that maybe a team really likes Richardson and wants to trade up. But yeah, 3 is a bit of a mess, and it's going to all depend on 2.
A mess. It really is. And 3 is like, the trade, right? And, okay, they want to trade down, but the big thing is, who is anybody trading up to get?
Yeah.
And to me, there's only one guy there that you would trade up. The number one player in the draft and who Arizona should take is the big from Georgia, Jalen Carter. Hands down. He's the best player. But and that's the one, like, at plus 1,400, I mean, I'm looking at that right now going, damn, I might just throw some change on that just to see if it hits. And if it hits, wow, right? I would probably bet the Will Anderson angle. I'm in the where I'm torn with them, and I aired on Will Anderson in my mock drafts, is just because Jonathan Gannon from Philadelphia, D-line. I mean, they just drafted a Georgia D tackle last year. We know how important that is. They need it, right? And then Monty Ossenfort, the GM, who's, previously in Tennessee and in New England before that. I could see him being scared of a guy like Jalen Carter. And then, of course, they're a team that's had a lot of off-the-field dysfunctional crap happen over the last year, to where maybe they don't want to risk that. And they just want to go, let's go with the safe guy. Yeah. And Will Anderson, we know is going to be real good for a long time. Might never be a superstar, but he's going to be real good, right? I don't think he's worth the number 3 pick, but that's where you're right. The number 3 is all over the place.
It's a scary time for us on this podcast because we have staked our claim that Will Anderson is not the best defensive player in this draft, and Chris has actually made a bet. He's kissed feet on this pod before, and now he actually might have to kiss his own rear.
What's worse, kissing my own butt or kissing your feet? I want to say your feet, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Feet's a minus
Neither are
2,000
great.
favorite. Feet's not good.
So what was your bet to yourself? What did you say? What was the proclamation that you made on this?
I said that Will Anderson wouldn't be a top 10, I believe, right?
No,
top pass rusher.
He would not be
first defense.
Top pass rusher. First defensive, first non-quarterback off
That's
the board.
What I said. You're
and
right.
so right now,
I also said I wouldn't take him in the top 10, but yes.
Yeah, we've forgotten that. But you didn't say that you would, kiss part of your body for that one. The line right now on Will Anderson, over under pick 3.5. Over is minus 175. Under is plus 135. So, Chris, it looks like you might not have to do that. So I guess, Jay, that means that Vegas thinks he might fall out of the top 3. Is that what that means?
Yeah, it does. And I think, again, it's largely based on whether Arizona can trade the pick. Because if Tyree goes 2 and then 3, if Arizona are going to draft defense, it's probably going to be Will Anderson. But also Paris Johnson Jr., a lot of momentum around him. So I think Will Anderson will ultimately slide. And if he goes past Arizona at 3, Colts aren't going to take Will Anderson. They're going to take a quarterback most likely.
Right.
5, it seems like Seattle's going to take Jalen Carter.
Definitely.
Because they don't care.
No, without a doubt. He's perfect for them.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he's like I said on Monday, Pete Carroll's going to chew gum, take his shirt off, and run to Kansas City to hand in the card for Jalen Carter.
Yeah, exactly. And so at that point, then he's really starting to slide. Yeah. So who knows where we'll go after that.
I know. And people sometimes think Detroit at like 6 could do that. I've seen that.
So Jalen Carter's over-under at pick 6.5. The over is plus 155. The under is minus 190. So it seems like, either Seattle, the Cardinals, who knows, but Detroit seems like a floor for him.
I was told that Seattle and Detroit did their homework on Jalen Carter. If he's on the board, they're taking him. Okay. And that'll be interesting to see. But, yeah, both teams could use it, certainly. I can't imagine him falling past that. I really can't. If he falls past 6, that's when I start to get in there. We could start to get into action for Jalen Carter. Like, that's where I start to go, uh-oh. He's at 7, and Philadelphia's there at 10 with pick 31 and Fletcher Cox on the last year of his deal, or, 1-year deal. That's where I would get scared of teams like that with the multiple picks now trading up to try to, make a move to get them.
Let's talk a little bit about quarterbacks here, because I think a lot of people had those 4 quarterbacks going pretty early, and then maybe no other quarterback going in the first round. When Chris did his mock draft on Monday, you had Hendon Hooker in there, and you've been higher on Hendon Hooker than the community, although he's gotten some
love. I think it's going up. Now I'm like, am I high enough? I feel like everybody's like, now he's going 12. He's going, he's going everywhere now.
So here was Sims's mock draft on Monday. Had Hendon Hooker going 23rd overall to the Minnesota Vikings. So the line right now for quarterbacks in the first round, over under 4.5, is over is minus 160, under is plus 130. So it looks like Vegas is coalescing around the fact that 4 are going to be in the first round.
4 for sure. Will it fall right for Hooker? That's going to be the question.
So the question is Hendon Hooker, I guess, Jay.
That's the market. It's minus 160 that Hendon Hooker's going to go in the first round. I guess there's some really outside chance Anthony Richardson could slide, but surely he's going to go in the first round. And so it's basically a better Hendon Hooker. And I think that it's more likely he goes in the first round if Houston draft defense at 2, because surely they're going to need a quarterback.
Yep.
And they might, they could even take him at 12.
Right,
They could
be the only guy left, or they go, we got to take him at 12.
They could trade
right.
up, they could package to get back in the first round as well. So I suspect he will go in the first round, but it's no lock.
Yeah, and he's also the prime candidate for team that, get the 5th-year option, team that's got a pick early in the second, top half of the second, and maybe has some other assets. Let me get to pick 31. Whoever the Chiefs wanted on the board, they felt like they can get him in day 2. Let's get to pick 31 so we can lock this guy up, have a 5th-year option available to us like we've seen teams do. I think there's a very real possibility that could happen as well. Like somebody can jump into that conversation there.
Yeah, I think quarterbacks is interesting. How many will go? Where will Hendon Hooker go? Will he be in the first round? And also the wide receivers, because we saw such a prolific wide receiver class last year. What was it? 6 in the first round?
Right.
And this year, Chris, you had
3.
Two.
All right, two in the
first
I
round.
only think 3 have a grade of being a first rounder.
So Zay Flowers, Smith-Njigba,
Right.
and then Addison from USC.
No, I had Quentin Johnson.
You think
remember
Quentin
from
Johnson?
yeah,
would be,
TCU.
Yeah,
Addison.
You didn't have Johnston in your
No,
first round, though.
He was one of my guys where, and we'll hit on this maybe in a little bit. Or there was some guys that, there's 4 or 5 guys, Quentin Johnson being one of them, where I went, man, am I really not going to have him in the first round? Damn, right? But he's on the borderline for me. So, yes, he got left out, but I certainly could see him going in those last 5, 6 picks.
So, Jay, Chris only had 2 in his first round. The over-under is 3.5, and it's about even either way, betting the over or the under here. So, kind of what's your feel on the wide receiver market in the draft?
So Jaxon, Smith-Njigba, he'll go first round for sure. Zay Flowers should go in the first round. And then it's a question of Addison and Johnson.
Right.
I think that Addison, there's been a lot linking him to the Chargers.
Which I just can't believe.
Yeah.
I'm just in shock over the Jordan Addison love. I mean, there's obviously somebody that likes him or 2 teams that like him. I've yet to talk to somebody who's even thrown him in the top receiver conversation.
Yep.
But you're right. I mean, it's kind of undeniable. It seems like the markets, mock drafts, everybody's kind of got him in there.
Yep. So it's going to be Addison and Johnson. Those are the 2 swing guys,
Right.
I think. And it seems like Addison will go first round. So then it becomes whether we think Quentin Johnson's a first round pick. I'd probably lean yes, slightly. But again, that one's a coin toss. And I think it's interesting because, the past couple of years we've seen rookie wide receivers do stuff that just hasn't been done in the past with what Justin Jefferson did his rookie year.
Yeah.
Olave
Jamar
and Wilson.
Chase,
Jamar
right.
Chase. Like
Yeah.
these guys have been out of their minds. And this just isn't the same class.
No.
It's just not the same level. These guys, like JSN is the best guy. He's not at that level.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he's the best guy either. That's where I would fight back. I think that our guy like Zay Flowers has a chance to be a Jalen Waddle-ish guy. That's where I'm interested. Like, how confident are you in the Jaxon, Smith-Njigba market there, right? Because I know teams, and I said this on Monday, where he despite even the injury concerns, he's not as graded as highly, right? I have some other teams who go, he's definitely going 10 through 20, 10 through 20, 10 through 20, right? But as I told him, I have other teams that go, we kind of have a high second-round grade on him. I mean, he's a slot-only receiver. He ran, a 4.5 at his pro day, which is kind of looked at as a 4.6 at the combine. And then you add on the hamstring thing, right? Where, I mean, do you get a feel that the market's confident that he goes in top 15 or 16?
I mean, the thing is that, so right now he's around minus 400
Right.
to be the first wide receiver taken. So it's not like minus 20,000. Like, it's not an absolute lock. The
Yeah.
market's made him favorite, but that minus 400 hasn't really moved
not a strong
in a while. And
yeah.
I think that with someone like him who is seemingly relatively low ceiling,
Right.
there is the chance that he could drop, and in the first round someone takes, Zay Flowers, who has a bit more upside potential.
That's what I kind
over
of
him.
thought.
Yeah.
Is how I played it out. I know. I wonder if the NFL world will be able to really just pull the trigger on a guy that didn't play because of a hamstring issue, and you play receiver, and the hamstring's kind of important at that position. That's the other part I'm just kind of flabbergasted about.
The cool thing is we all find out on Thursday when
Right.
it all happens before our eyes, which is the cool thing about all this. We see if we're right or wrong, or if teams thought differently than the consensus out there. So, Jay, before we let you go, we got to get a couple of actionable thoughts and perhaps bets out there.
Make us some money, Jay.
Make us some money, yeah.
NATO?
Your favorite chalk bet. So the bet out there that is the favorite, but you're like, I'm going, still some value there.
Yeah. So Chris and I talked about this on my show last week, but I think Tyree Wilson will be the first first defensive player taken. When we talked about it was plus 275.
Yeah.
Now it's minus 150.
Right.
I still think that's a bet, just because everything I've heard is that Houston have him over Anderson, and I think that Arizona have him over Anderson as well.
Yeah.
And I think one of those two teams will draft defense, and
Right.
so Tyree Wilson will be the first defensive player off the board.
Not be kicking your or kissing your rear,
No,
or kicking
I won't.
anything.
Come
we don't
on,
wanna kick you outta
Tyree.
here.
No feet.
All right, what about a long shot
No.
bet out there?
Well, I think that, so one, and it's a random one, but Cody Mark to be drafted in the first round is plus 400. I've heard that he's going in the first round, and it's plus 400. I don't really know much beyond that. I've just heard that he's going to be taken in the first round. So I think that's a bet at plus 400. And that's the thing with these type of things. Like if I hear something that, oh, this guy is going here, but it's minus 300, it's like,
Yeah.
well, if the information's pretty bad, then I'm
Right.
left kind of holding the bag. But at plus 400, that's when I'm more willing to go in on just kind of tips.
North Dakota State offensive tackle was not in your first round mock.
No,
And you were
but one of
looking
my
at
favorite guards. He was our honorable mention, right?
Guard.
Right?
He's a
yeah,
guard.
I thought he was more of a guard. He played tackle, to your
Sure.
point, but I thought he was a guard when it all said and done, right? Kind of like a Peter Skoronski, a poor man's version of that. But I could see that. You know, if it becomes a run of offensive linemen and we get to a few teams at, the end of the first round and go, wait, we need this, he's going to be the next guy up, a little bit like Cole Strange was last year, right? Where it's like, wait, yeah, I had him as a second-round pick, but a run happened in O-lineman, he was the next guy up, and New England was like, shit, we have a big gap between him and then the next guy, so we're going to take him now, right? And I don't think that's crazy. Yep. Again, good O-linemen are not easy to find right now. They're not. There's so few of them are ready to play in the NFL, and North Dakota State guys have proven they're ready, let alone this guy shows the skill set. When he first said the name, I thought he said his Australian accent. He was like, Cody Mark. I was like, I didn't study Cody Mark. Oh, shit.
That's why you were looking like
I
that.
was literally like, oh, shit. Hold on. I got to type in there's somebody I missed in the process. Cody Mark, M-A-R-K? It's mock.
Chris, we probably have that video of Chris's face because I was watching your
You
face.
saw me?
I thought you were just that shocked.
I was
that Cody
literally
was
about
going
to be
first round.
like, wait, who's he talking about, Cody Mark? I up here. Oh my gosh, you made me give me a heart attack. Thank you. Holy crap.
Only one of the top players in the
Cody
draft.
Mark, Chris, what's your breakdown of him? I don't know who he is.
Yeah.
Damn.
Jay giving Chris a heart attack.
Yes,
live
thank
on the
you,
pod.
Jay.
We
Thank you.
appreciate that. We appreciate all the insights and the knowledge, and we can't wait to see what plays out here. Come back and talk odds with us. We love talking some of the betting lines and what the bettors and consensus things out there. Because as Chris said last year, it was like spot on.
It was
like
scary
Vegas
last
nailed it.
year.
We don't trust it this year, but maybe after Thursday we will trust it
We were
again.
in the barn last year in the first round and the first three picks made, and I looked at them and I just said, why didn't I listen to Vegas? It's chalk. Like, what was I doing here?
Appreciate it, Jay.
Yeah, you the man,
Thank you,
Jay.
gentlemen.
I know
Thanks
Jay's
as
got,
always.
he's got a whole lot of other things to do. He's on like 17 different shows here talking football the rest of the week. The action never stops at BetMGM. You can sign up now using the bonus code SIMS. Your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000.
So say Jay says bet $100 on Cody Mark or Cody Mock, all right, to go in round one. If you win, you get $400, but if you lose, you still get $100 worth of free bets, Ahmed.
So simply download the BetMGM app today or go to BetMGM.com and enter the bonus code SIMS to make your first wager risk-free up to $1,000. That was a whole lot of fun. And
That
now,
was-
just
I
like
really
that,
enjoy it.
He's been eliminated.
He's
Look at
outta
that.
here.
Gone. Microphone
Cody
gone.
Mark,
Chair.
how dare you.
Morgan was in here taking all of that away. It's just like he wasn't even here anymore. I looked at your face and I was like, wow, he's really fascinated by the fact that this offensive lineman could go in the first round.
I was panicked. Like, that was total panic. I was literally like, oh my gosh, there's somebody I didn't watch that I've like fallen through the cracks on me here.
Yeah.
I mean, I first was like literally going through my brain, like, wait, how could I have missed somebody that was? And then I was like, wait, I was about to type in Cody Mark.
Yeah, Cody Mark, Penn State linebacker. A lot of buzz about him. I think
Right.
he may go in the 20s. That was awesome. All right. So those are some of the predictions out there. Vegas has got their predictions, but as always, we like the input from the homies too, right?
We gotta have it.
And so Pete has put this together once again, and I'm going to fill this out later today. It is the Sims 2023 Draft Top 10 Contest. So here's the promo for it. I'm going to just read it.
Read it.
The 2023 draft is almost here, And now you can predict who you think will be selected for your chance to hear your name on the podcast and receive some Chris Sims Unbuttoned swag.
Yes,
So,
yes.
As I promised on Twitter, I go, you'll have it by 2028.
We'll get there.
Maybe 2029.
Right.
And Pete goes, come on. And I go, that's a safe promise. So go to Chris's Twitter account. That is at @CSimsQuarterback. There's no blue check there. So you just have to trust that that's actually Chris.
Right.
That's gone. There's a link to the contest there. Polls close at 2 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, April 27th. Results going to be revealed on the Monday pod, May 1st. We've already got 323 responses so far. I hope that we get one homie. So if you're listening to this or watching it, go out there and fill it out because I want one homie to nail the top 10.
Damn, me too.
How cool would that be?
That'd be amazing. I'm rooting for that too. Damn, I'll forget the swag. If one of the homies nails the top 10, $1,000 cash from me. Period.
What?
I'm saying it right now.
Seriously?
Definitely.
Wow.
They deserve it because Pete's not going to get them the swag, and your wife's not going to start working the printing press.
She's been slacking
so
big time.
I guess that's just going to come out of my pocket. No, I'm dead serious. Somebody gets the top 10 right, I'm giving them $1,000 in cash. I'll
No
mail
way.
it. I'll FedEx it to you overnight.
Did you just come up with this on the spot?
I totally
or had you
did.
been thinking about this?
No. I just felt like it'd be a good incentive. I kind of thought about it the other day when you guys
Yeah.
said it, and I was like, what's something I could do to just add to the flavor there? No one wants to see me kiss my own butt again or kiss your feet again. So $1,000 should whet some people's appetite a little bit.
And Pete says if no one wins it, then it will be split amongst Pete and Morgan and
Absolutely
Kristen
not.
and Gabby
Maybe
and the whole crew.
Morgan and Kristen and Gabby, but definitely not Pete or you. I know
All
that.
right. So you gotta rush to your computer right now. The link is on his Twitter account. I'm gonna fill it. If I win,
And you can put on, if you get 10 right, I'll give you 1,000. I will. You can put that on there too,
Yeah.
Pete. Sim said he gives 1,000 cash. Anybody gets 10.
Now it is only one entry per person though, so we want to make that
make
clear.
sure we
so
do
don't
that,
do anything
right.
shady
Yeah.
out there.
I have
Just-
100 different entries.
Yeah, I think it's got to be linked to an email address. We're going to check, too, so
Yeah.
be careful out there. That's awesome. All right, so get out and fill out your top 10. We got some more questions from the homies because
Cool.
we like to answer those all the time as well. And this first one, Pete, there's no name associated with it. Is this
I think
just you,
this
Pete?
is something I gave Pete. I was just like, what? I didn't bring this up on the last one. I'd
Got
like
it.
to bring up some of the names that hurt me, or
Right.
that I think have first round grades that certainly can
Sure.
go in the first round. That maybe that I'm wrong.
All right, this one is from C. Sims Quarterback. Hey, Chris, love the show. Looking awesome as always. Who are some players who weren't in your round one who you think could still go there?
Sure.
So you didn't have a mocked in the first round. We just heard about Cody Mock
Yeah.
that could go in the first round. Who are some other names that you think could go
Right.
round one?
So along those lines, just along the guard category, and Cody Mock is a guy that I had him at like 35 to 45 range, I
Yeah.
believe, when we did it. Osiris Torrance, right, from Florida, the big guard, who I said the only guy that pushed him back on any film I ever watched was Jalen Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, he was pretty stand-up. Has a lot of the same traits that the kid at the Texans took last year. They took a guard out of Texas, Kenyon Green. Way to go, Pete. You the man. Yeah, very similar to that. So I think he's a guy. We just talked about Quentin Johnston, right, from TCU.
Yep.
I mean, no doubt a guy that, towards the end of the first round, and when I got done with my mock, I was like, damn, no Quentin. I can't believe I don't have him on there. All right, so there's another one for you. Matthew Bergeron, our other
Offensive lineman, Syracuse.
we gave him honorable mention. I think he's another guy that could definitely go in that last 5 to 6 picks of the first round.
Is that based on the fact that there could be a run on offensive linemen, or are those things that you're hearing from some of your
I think
friends
a
out
base
there?
of the offensive line, and I know from friends that he's viewed in that area. I think he's like, for an example, like Bergeron seems like he's a little bit of like last year's Tyler Smith, right? Remember Tyler Smith who the Cowboys drafted? He was one of those guys where it was a little raw at tackle, but you went, ooh, I see all the traits. And then like the run blocking was insanely good to where you were like, he can definitely play guard. But let's get him in camp, and if he can do some of the technique things, he can play tackle too. And that's what happened to our guy last year, Tyler Smith, who got drafted by the Cowboys.
right.
So he's one. And I think a team that's looking for a guard or somebody like that, if they do in the end of the first round, he could be a guy that goes off the board. And then Darnell Washington, the big tight end from Georgia. He's another one of those guys where on my list of all my first round grades, he was the guy that I have as fringe. I had him 32, 33, somewhere in that type of range. I think there's a very real possibility he goes in the first round too. So those are 4 names that, jump out to me as can go. And, names that I do want to throw out a name or two that maybe don't go in the first round that I could be wrong. I know my Giants with DJ Turner, right?
Yeah.
That's certainly a possibility. I know I'm higher on him than most. I know there are some that are high on him, though, in the NFL.
Yeah, you mocked him to the Giants corner out of Michigan.
Right. So he could be a guy that ends up being at pick 35 or 36,
Sure.
right? You know what I'm saying? Brian Brzee from Clemson. That was one where I definitely had some people text me to go, I don't think Brzee will go where you said he'll go. I think he'll end up being towards the top of the second, right? So those are just some names that were interesting to me during my process and then even after the process a little bit.
It's a hard exercise because there's so many obviously variables here and how different teams view these players, what they need, and then how much it costs. Taking a running back high, you got to pay him the same as a quarterback who hits, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
And so those guys fall.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So this question kind of leads to that, and I think, Pete, did you move it down there? Oh, here it is. Addy M27. Addy M27, a big-time homie that always chimes in here. If you had to pick the top 5 players in this draft, who would they be? So these are just the guys, regardless of value, and you don't take a running back high, and maybe this team doesn't need this. Like, who are your top 5 NFL players in this draft?
I think my 1 and 2. Jalen Carter and Tyree Wilson are 1-2, right?
Your top 2 guys are defensive players.
Definitely. No doubt about it. If I was going to go off of film, CJ Stroud would be my 3. I understand the value of the quarterback is probably even adding to that ranking there a little. But off that, yes. If you would have asked me this, before all these reports came out, if I want to be, honest to you, I think that's where I'd go. He'd be 3. Witherspoon would be 4. Bijan Robinson would be 5.
Oof, that's the exact same 5 that Addy M27 had.
I think that's that's how I would look at it. Listen, I understand with hey, if we were to now get into the concerns of CJ Stroud, and if you wanted to now take him off the board there or whatever, right? That's where. Now that next conversation you get into is who you'd put in that top. That's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
That's where you get into, is it a Peter Skoronski, right? Is it one of the tackles? Is it Dalton Kincaid from Utah would be up in that conversation for me there. But I think that's how I kind of feel as far as that top 5.
Wow.
The crazy thing is though, is for most, there's not as many top 5-ish guys as, at least for where I put it in my brain, right? Top 5 is like cream of the crop, awesome, like, whoa kind of guys. And like as soon as you get to 5 or 6 here and that kind of exercise, you go, oh, that's a really good player, but I'm not like, whoa, wow, oh my gosh, like you are in some years.
That's kind of the fear that I've had the longer we've talked about this, and maybe it's just that the longer you talk about it, the more you see him, the more you're less impressed by the highlights. You've already seen it all. But the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, are we going to have some superstar players in this draft, or is this just going to be a down year?
I think I think it's going to be down probably as a whole. I do. I don't know, but there's some guys I look at that go have a real chance. I mean, we know, the Carters, the Tyrees. There's some guys with real potential to do something here. There definitely is. So I don't think we're going to be hurting from a sport or that standpoint by any stretch of the imagination. And I think also, too, there's some guys that I will say that, I know through the process where, we had some receivers who were 2nd and 3rd round type guys where I went, man, they got a lot to be like special NFL players. I just not sure about this one element and how it's going to kind of transition to the NFL, right? So there's some of that to where, hey, my guy from Tennessee, Byron Young, right, the pass rusher, who's, 250 and ran 4.4 flat, right? There's some things about his game where I go, it won't shock me if he's one of the 2 best pass rushers in football in a few years.
So along those lines,
Yeah.
this leads perfectly to JB Twoots' tweet. Said, what player do you like the most that you definitely don't think will be drafted in the first round? And then he goes, by the way, the Big Butt of the Year winner should get a pair of red pants from me. That is true.
That is true.
The elephant trophy.
Yes.
And then an extra large. What is it? What waist would I need for those red pants?
Oh,
what
man.
are we talking here?
Yo,
50?
Oh, I'm probably more than I guess 50. Probably about that. You're right.
Okay.
I don't even know. You're right. It depends on the size of their belly. I think that's where you get into that conversation a little bit.
But you mentioned Byron Young, a guy that you really like that you don't think is. I mean, he's not going to go in the first round, but it wouldn't shock you if he showed up and did some amazing things. So, who are some other players that you think that for whatever reason, injury, they just aren't looked at that way, won't be first rounders, but could be first round talents?
Right. I think there's two pass rushers right off the bat that I look at to go, yeah, it's going to be in the second round, but have a chance like in a year or two where we go, man, that guy should redraft. He's a top 25 pick, right? Byron Young's one, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Along that position, Derek Hall from Auburn is another one. Same type of thing. Those are two guys with incredible talent. Sam Laporta, my Iowa tight end that I love,
Yep.
right? I think he's probably a guy that goes to the top part of the second round. I don't think it's crazy to think maybe he sneaks late first if things fall right. But either way, he's a guy that I expect to go in the second that I think can be phenomenal in that area.
Let me throw the wide receiver there.
Oh.
You and I both liked Michael Wilson, Stanford.
Definitely. I mean, 100%.
He's had some injury problems. That's why he's going to fall. But
He's liked by everybody. Yes, it's just going to be where his team's going to be comfortable to finally take him. I have a feeling he's going to end up probably even being in the third round because it's a little bit of an extensive injury history there. But yes, there's a guy, to your point, exactly right, where you can go, whoa, like we hit gold in the third round with this receiver right here. I had somebody else on my mind that I was going to hit on. We hit on some of the O linemen there. The D tackles. So the D tackles, like the big guy, as far as maybe not stars, but guys that start. The Keanu Benton from Wisconsin, right? He's a guy that I look at to go, he's not going in the first round, but he can be a really damn good defensive lineman for a team for a long time. I think that's it. I think I had a few other guys. Cam Smith from South Carolina, the corner.
yeah.
Be another guy I'd throw in there, into that conversation. But I think those are the ones kind of off the top of my head that make the most sense.
Keely Ringo, also corner from Georgia.
Right. Keely Ringo, my thoughts on, I think those Illinois safeties are going to help a football team out in a major way, right? They're not going to go in the first round.
Yeah,
I'm missing somebody else. I had somebody else in my mind,
well.
but you know me. I'll get back to it. With
Sidney
one more
Brown
thing.
and Quan Martin are
Quan
those
Martin,
two safeties
yeah.
from Illinois
Right.
that you mentioned. How about some running backs? Some running back talk. Ted J. Rowland says, what about Jahmyr Gibbs being taken even earlier at pick 22 for Baltimore? A great offensive weapon alongside OBJ for Lamar Jackson to transition to more of a pocket passer. Good weapons also if Lamar gets injured and they require a backup quarterback.
It's an interesting thought. I think about them and would they go receiver, right? I mean, they're a team that would be interesting there too. I don't feel like. I mean, that would be there's certainly like I don't look at that and go, oh no, that's a bad idea. That's too early. I wouldn't be mad at Jahmyr Gibbs going right there. I wouldn't. He's a game changer. I put a lot of stock into that. He's a guy that can catch a screen or take a toss sweep, and you can go, oh, we're up 7 just on one play. I think there's tremendous value in that. I don't know if I see them as being the type of team to do it. That's all I'm saying, right? I think they're a little bit of like, wait, we got Lamar and we got this offensive line and the holes are always huge and, we got an advantage anyway, so let's not waste our capital on that, right?
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't be mad at it, but I don't see that being a Baltimore type of move. And I also just, the corner thing is still very much in my brain as far as a need for their football
For the
team.
Ravens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
But your thought's not wrong there. I
wouldn't be shocked
like
if he's
that.
a first rounder.
No, he's another guy. He's probably a guy I should have said, hey, I got him in the first round. He might end up going to the top of the second, right? But I think his talent very much warrants the 20 through 32. In the 2023 NFL, come on, he's made for it.
Yep. So those running backs, it's tough. They could fall. Quarterbacks don't normally fall. We are seeing C.J. Stroud's name falling from what it was 3 weeks ago, as Jay said, was the number one guy, and now who knows how far he could go down. TB Kit says, what's the furthest you can see C.J. Stroud dropping? Surely he doesn't get by the Titans at 11 or Texans at 12 if they don't go quarterback at 2 for Houston.
Right.
So, you had C.J. Stroud going 8 in your mock draft to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I think I saw some of the reactions to that. They're like, no way he falls that far. But there are some other scenarios out there where he not only falls that far, but maybe
Falls
even
farther,
farther. What do you
right.
think is the absolute bottom floor for C.J. Stroud?
I think our man at TB Kids is right. I think that's about right. That 11-12 area. I'd be shocked if it went past that. I mean, from everything I know, Houston does not like C.J. Stroud, right? That's from, that's not directly from them. That's from people, around the NFL that certainly know them or have some connections with them. But I think that 11 or 12 spots as far as it goes. If the Titans are, because my logic for putting them at 8 with the Falcons was that their grade was going to be, he's one of the 4 best players in our draft, and here we are at 8, and we got to take him, even though we weren't planning on taking a quarterback. So I would think those teams have that same type of logic when it gets, time. And he certainly would fit Tennessee's style of play and what they want to do. I mean, he's just a better version of Ryan Tannehill when he came out, really.
Some teams could have similar conversations about Anthony Richardson if he's falling as well. Das Batlam says, listening to the mock draft, interesting. Oh, good.
Yeah.
We were interesting on Monday. Richardson, Chris, he said he's raw. He needs to play. Wasn't it the same thing with Lance at this time when it was said to sit him? What is the difference? So he's referring to Trey Lance coming out, North Dakota State.
Yeah.
Really hadn't played longer because he had a COVID year off and then was kind of injured the year before. And so the amount of football that Trey Lance had played was very scant
right.
at the time. What do you think is ideal for Richardson, and is it different than what it was for Trey Lance when he was coming out?
It's the situation always is a little dependent. I don't know if it is. And listen, I don't remember exactly what I said about Trey Lance right when we made the quarterback rankings.
I remember quite
I know
a
at
bit.
some point I got into they need to play. He's got to
Exactly.
play.
Yes.
But I don't know if I said that before the draft. So I'm not going to say, I certainly could have been in the school of like, he was raw. I felt like, he needed to learn. Part of my maybe learning more of the NFL and how I would approach things and self-scouting myself and all of that too. And maybe the Trey Lance is part of this with the Anthony Richardson thing. I am totally, when people tell me we're going to sit him for a year, I just go, okay, you're playing with fire. That's just my opinion. He's got to play. That's the problem. I mean, the rawness in which we're talking about is directly related to that. You're not going to get it in practice. I don't care what you do, right? And he's got the skill set to where you can find other avenues to be successful and do some things too anyways. So it doesn't all have to be put on like, hey, the thing you're most raw on, we need you to do play after play after play after play after play after play, right? They're going to be able to go, hey, here's thing you do good. Here's thing you do pretty good. Here's things you do good. Oh, here's the raw thing. We got to just kind of work on it. Okay, good job. Okay, good job. You did good on that. Here's the thing you do good. Here's the thing you do good. Hey, raw thing. Back to that one play. Oh, okay, boom, boom, got it. I mean, you got to do that. It's too hard. The sport's too hard to just like get off the bike and okay and boom, okay, hey, it's a year later, it's 2 years later, now we want to get on the bike and be the best bike rider around. Like it's too much. So I've always been a part of the play. I know I've always been that guy.
Yeah,
that for sure. Now I don't know exactly what I said with Lance at the time, but I'm always a Peyton Manning, what he did. Throw him out there. So what if he throws 27 interceptions the next year? He might throw 50 touchdowns.
What is the most ideal spot for Richardson, you think? A place where he will play right away, and also it's set up around him, and maybe an offensive system, or they can develop an offensive system around him that would set him up to succeed.
The teams we talk about that are logically connected to him right off the bat.
Yeah.
Right? The Colts, of course. I mean, it's Nick Sirianni. I mean, not Nick Sirianni. It's Shane Steichen. Right? I mean, they just had Jalen Hurts. That can work. The Texans, I could see that. I mean, again, it's Bobby Slovic. He just came from the 49ers. He was part of like, hey, we got to get Trey Lance run plays involved in the, and let alone even without the Trey Lance run plays. I think that offense is conducive to that type of player too. So, yeah, those are two right off the bat that makes sense to me as far as system fit. Now, like, it's not a concerning thing overall, though. I think it's a little too much, people make a big subject about it.
He doesn't need a specific system necessarily.
No, like, everybody has a quarterback design run now, right? It's in everybody's offense. It just depends who's at quarterback, and it's like, oh, is Brady a quarterback? Okay, that's on page 97 now. But, oh, wait, it's this guy? Hey, we put it at page 7, right? So that's where it doesn't matter. I mean, the Bears offensive coordinator, he had no quarterback design run, plays in his playbook. And then
took him a little while.
It took him a while to do it. You're right. It is. And I feel like that was almost more of an organizational, like, they finally came to it and were like, boom, let's go. But yeah, I think that's a little like, again, even a guy like Josh McDaniels at 7. We know that's not his offense, but we saw him with Cam Newton. He made the adjustment in no time, right? So I don't think it's as big of an adjustment to infuse those plays into your offense as it once was maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Speaking of the Bears, they could be looking at offensive line, some players to protect Justin Fields. We got a question from Connor McGinnis, says, can Peter Skoronski be a surprise at tackle like Rashawn Slater? Some analysts had Slater at guard due to his short arms too, but Skoronski's are only 3/4 of an inch shorter. They're both the same height, nearly the same weight. So what do you think about that? Yeah,
I don't think it's crazy to think Skoronski can play tackle. I have no doubt that he can do that and be really good at it. I have no doubt he can do it and be pretty good at it. Guard, he's going to be really good, and might be an all-pro a bunch of times too. That's just how I feel. So, again, that's where he's a safe pick too. There's wiggle room. It's kind of why I put him with the Bears. The Bears needed an offensive lineman, and it's like, hey, we can just try it out a little at both places at first and kind of figure out what's the best 5 for us or whatever. Where I would say he's a little different than Slater is just that I don't think his anchor against the pass rush is quite as good as Slater's was. Slater showed enough in that department where he wasn't my favorite guy coming out then, but he was good in that department and better than Skoronski was at that part. That's the part that scares me about Skoronski, is just that, it's a little bit of a lack of the arm length and a little bit of a lack of the, he doesn't have the same lower half. He's a little lower cut, and he can't quite stop that speed to power type of move as easily as Slater could.
Still should be a top half of the first round
Definitely, 100%.
So there's some wishful thinking here from Big Bad 016.
No chance.
Any chance Peter Skoronski gets to the Giants? I still prefer they beef up the interior O-line. I did see Peter King mock them with a tight end, and then Big Bad goes, it's got to be either O-line, corner, or wide receiver in the first round, right?
I think so. I think that's right. O-line or corner, I got to think could be the ones that, are looked at the most. Tight end, we just traded for Darren Waller. We got Bellinger at tight end. We don't need a tight end in the first round. Please don't do that, Giants. Yeah. Okay? Skoronski, no chance will he be there at that pick. Yeah. He's definitely, like you said, like top 15 for sure. Now
Quentin Johnston is a name that you've heard sometimes, right? Big, tall, wide receiver, seems like might be right up Dayball's alley.
It definitely could. He could be that guy. And Daniel Jones is a great back shoulder type thrower. That'll work. It will. The interior O-line, is there a guy there? That makes sense. Maybe Osiris Torrance. I know John Michael Schmitz, the center from Minnesota. I certainly thought about that with the Giants as well. And then the corner position, the corner position is I think the most desperate need. And that's where I went corner, even though I know, it's a little off the board for everybody else. It wasn't for me because I just went, wait, there's only one more shutdown island corner in the draft. All the other guys are, they do other things good and have some size, but they can't be trusted on an island like this guy. And that's where I went with DJ Turner, but we'll see where that goes. And, I think you're spot on there at Big Bad 016.
You had Paris Johnson, the tackle from Ohio State, going 7 to the Raiders. Yeah. And Hunter Roll says, I was surprised to see the Raiders pass on both Stroud and Anderson in your mock. Are they really in a position to punt on this chance at getting a potential young quarterback stud? Thanks for preparing me for the typical disappointing Raider night 1 of the draft, and I love O-linemen. So he is talking about C.J. Stroud, who you had go 8 overall, and then Richardson, I think, is what he meant, at 12 overall.
Oh, that's who he meant.
Right?
He didn't mean Anderson, right?
Anderson.
Yeah. Even if Will Anderson was on the board at 7, I don't think they're going to go that.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I don't, and especially they have Max Crosby and they still have Chandler Jones too. I don't think they'll do that. Now, I understand. I'm playing the angle of, hey, the testing stuff and Stroud and all that. Like the New England people are usually really big on that, the processing and all that. So that's where I don't think it'll happen. Richardson, again, all I hear is good things about Richardson. So, I don't know either. I don't know. I just, again, I don't think that's the offense that Josh McDaniels wants to run, and he's got Devontae Adams who's going to go, wait, I want to catch the ball, and they're going to go, well, we got to run the quarterback design run again because he's raw here.
Yeah.
Like you're setting yourself up for a disaster if they do that.
007 Sports says, which of these quarterbacks fits the Josh McDaniels scheme best? And so not Anthony Richardson.
No. Well, yes. Just think about it. You just gave Jacoby Myers $11 million a year. You're paying Devontae Adams $27 million a year. You got Hunter Renfrow, you're paying double-digit millions a year. Oh, yeah, we're going to run the ball every play with the quarterback and Josh Jacobs.
Yeah.
No way.
Maybe a good offense for a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, right. Well,
feed the talent.
Stroud certainly would make sense. Hendon Hooker, I think, would be perfect. Levis as well. So those three would work without a doubt. Of course, I think Stroud's the best player of the group there. I could really see Hendon Hooker being their cup of tea too. I don't know if they would take him at 7. Maybe they're a team that looks to trade down and get him somewhere else. I don't know. They got a lot of angles there. They could use a corner. They could use an offensive lineman. They could use a big-time defensive lineman, right? Interior guy especially. So they have some options there as far as what fits for their team.
LA 504 Animal says, with the Saints notorious for trading up and in need of a defensive lineman, if they do trade up, who would you think it'll be for? Love the pod, fan since the Bleacher Report days. Keep up the great work, guys.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, LA 504 Animal, right? Trade up.
So they pick 29th.
29th.
You had them in your mock taking Lukas Van Ness out of Iowa.
Yep, had him going the D lineman.
Is there really a defensive tackle to trade up for?
I don't know if there's one to trade up for, right? You got your Mozzie Smith, right? That's Maisie. It's Maisie Smith. Mozzie. I get him so mixed up.
Mozzie Smith, which I feel like you're higher on than maybe the community out there. So as far as a draft up guy, I don't know.
Yeah. I think
and you mentioned Brian Brzee. Might not go in the first round.
Yep. I don't think he's a trade up guy. I think where you can maybe get into the trade up conversation is that, if like a guy like Maisie was really, your last big time defensive tackle ranked, maybe you do trade up. But really, I don't think they need to look at interior all the way when it comes to this conversation either. I think you can go a little bit everywhere. They can do anything on the D-line. They're aging in that department. We talked about it on Monday. Cam Jordan's up there in age. Marcus Davenport's gone, right? So edge-type guy, I wouldn't be shocked if they loved the Will McDonald from Iowa State.
Yeah.
If he was sitting there and we had a run, and let's say Van Ness is off the board and all them, and Will McDonald or Van Ness are sitting there at like low 20s, and like they've deemed, wait, we need another guy here. I wouldn't be shocked, but again, with them specifically, it'd be interesting. I don't know if there is a guy that like you'd trade up for. Van Ness again is a guy, like I said, it's kind of a little all over the place. Some teams say, oh, he's definitely 10 for 20, and then other teams go, no, he's the very end of the first round. So how they view him is important to that. You look at them. They drafted Peyton Turner, right, in first round 2 years ago.
Okay.
Right? Which was, I think he was like the last or second to last pick of the first round, which I thought was a little high for him, right? Pete, wasn't he a first rounder? He was end of the first. Or if not end of the first, he was top of the second. So that, but like, they got Passan Young, who they, got from the Chiefs a few years ago. They have no elite guy on the edge. So I could see them certainly wanting that guy, and we'll see where it plays out. Miles Murphy, of course, is at the end of the first round. There should be options.
Yeah, you have them taking Lukas Van Ness, but they do have different directions that they could go there. Greavesy 101 has a question about Van Ness. He goes, could Lukas Van Ness have a similar fall on draft night to George Karlaftis, last year. So Karlaftis out of Purdue. Where did he end up going?
The Chiefs.
No, I know, but where in the draft?
Oh, I think he was 31.
Yeah,
right,
was he supposed to go higher than that?
I thought he was going to go higher than that. I know that. I think a lot of people thought maybe he'd go, hot 18, 19, 22, kind of around that range right there.
Do you see them as similar in maybe some of the questions that teams may have about them? Van Ness is more power, but he's still got that explosiveness to him.
I think the teams that want to look at him just as a DN, they don't know if he's explosive enough. I think that could be, and that was, I think, Karlaftis' issues too. He has the size and the length they want, but I think there's question about, does he have the first step, and is he, just this natural off the edge type pass rusher, right? I think a lot of people, including myself, think he's best when he's inside, right? But also I think there's some teams that go, man, he's mid 270s, and that's not big enough for inside in the NFL. It might work in college, but in the NFL, we're a little scared. We're not sure, and that's what leads to him falling down a little bit on some teams' board there.
Yeah.
So that's where. He's a tough one. I certainly could see him falling a little bit, yes, to where, he's your cup of tea, a system fit, whatever else that way. And I could see some teams going, no way is he our type of guy.
Two positions that I think really will be the story in the first round is edge. There could be 6 guys that go. Quarterback could be 5 guys that go. Let's get back to the quarterback talk here. And this is sober wrestling. How much do you think the following year's quarterback class factors into how teams evaluate the draft? Is it implausible to think that Houston will pass on a quarterback for Caleb Williams or Drake May next year? So those are the 2 names that we hear. Caleb Williams, you hear everyone talk about him, say he would be the number 1 pick this year, although I feel like we get that every year with a quarterback, but it does seem true with Caleb Williams doing things on the field at USC that
I think it's fair.
Patrick Mahomes does in the NFL
I think
right
Caleb
now.
Williams would have been the number 1 quarterback this year. I got to watch USC enough at the end of the year where I got a really good feel for him. And I just
don't watch too much. Your magic is that you just wait until
I know
right before the draft.
Well, that, and again, I think that's too risky. You can't take that chance.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't change their approach at all.
No, you can't. You just can't do it. You can't play, we're going to do this and that and this and this because we'll have one of these guys next year. And then all of a sudden you win a few more games than you wanted to, and all of a sudden you're drafting a number 12, and these guys are they're top 4 picks. You're screwed, right? So you got to take the guy now while you got the chance. Caleb Williams, awesome. Drake May certainly looks like a natural quarterback, the North Carolina kid.
North Carolina.
Yep. And let me just throw in another name. The quarterback from Washington, he's the lefty, Panak. I'm not going to say his name right. Washington Huskies, and go ahead, you can look it up as I talk about him. He's a lefty.
Okay.
Again, another guy that I looked at. My dad kind of put me on him about halfway through the year, and I got to see him a few times in some of those late Pac-12 games. Phenomenal. I mean, to me, him and Caleb Williams.
Michael Penix.
Penix, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. To me, Caleb Williams and him will be the 2 top quarterbacks drafted in next year's draft, with Drake May being in that conversation.
Yeah, Penix surprisingly came back for
I know.
another year.
I was
He could have
shocked.
Gone into the draft.
He had some injuries. He had a transfer out of Indiana and went to Washington, and I guess he just felt like he needed another year, enjoy the college experience, whatever.
Yeah, it could be the power of the NIL too in college.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's one from Raiders 2185. If there was a team to trade back into the first round for a quarterback, which team do you think it would be? So you've talked about this a couple of times.
Yeah.
And the power of drafting a quarterback in the first round is you have the option to secure them for a 5th year. We just saw Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals exercise that option. So it does give you some, if this guy is a hit, man, oh man, and you get it at the end of the first round at that salary structure, that's a home run. I thought we might see it last year. No one did it last year.
Right.
And those quarterbacks ended up going like in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
So which team?
Raiders are one, for sure. If they didn't get one to where, like, if Hendon Hooker was sitting there on the board at 30.
You basically think it would be for Hendon Hooker.
I
right?
feel like he'd be the guy that ends up falling and is
who
down
else would
there.
it be?
I don't think the other guys are going to fall that far. Hooker, I think, the age and just the knee and when he can become available for us to play is going to hurt his draft stock, right? Like, we're going to draft a guy, that might not actually be able to contribute to our team next year. Or if he can, maybe it'll be halfway through the year, right? That's hard for teams, again, back to our conservative front office people. It's hard for them to swallow and digest that all the time, right?
Yep.
So the Raiders would be one. The Seahawks are another one. They're sitting there at 37 at the top of the second round, right? I could certainly see them doing it. Houston doesn't have, and I think they're, by all due accounts, will have addressed their quarterback thing in the first round. The only thing I'll say with Houston is that they don't have a top of the second pick. They have 2 in the top of the third, right? And then, of course, they can use future assets, too, if they wanted to get into that conversation. But, yeah, that's going to take a little bit more juggling there in that conversation to get up in that. And then the other team after that, all right, so I said Raiders, Seahawks, the Titans at 41. That'd be another one. I could see the Titans at 41. Oh, wait, the quarterback of our state school, the University of Tennessee, is still on the board here. And, this, by all due accounts, is our last year with Ryan Tannehill. Let's get a guy that – can run our offense just like Ryan Tannehill, except he's bigger and a more natural thrower and, has some big-time potential. Those are 3 that really jump out to me.
All right, got one more here from Junior Chow 13.
What up, Junior Chow?
And this is a real bummer for me. There are 5 teams, he says, the Browns, Rams, Dolphins, 49ers, Broncos, without a first-round pick this year. I think that just sucks. Because then it's that whole fan base. And like I know, they traded him away, and so what are you supposed to do? But it's like the MLB All-Star game. Every team gets a player on the All-Star team. I don't know. It's a bummer. I realize they did this to themselves. But do you see any of them making a trade to get back in there? So of those teams, Browns, Rams, Dolphins, 49ers, Broncos, which fan base maybe should have the TV on in the background? 49ers have a lot of picks.
49ers have a lot of picks, but it's not to the end of the third, really, where they start, right?
Yeah.
The Rams are a team, again, we're more likely in these situations, it has to be somebody that has a high second. Like, nobody wants to go from pick 30 and then go, wait, now we're picking 62?
Yeah.
Right? That's not what they want to do.
It has to be a future first round.
It has to, or it'd have to be, that's what I mean. It gets expensive with that type of move, to move up that far. So, yeah, I look more or less, there'll be teams that are in at least the top half of the second round to move up and be there.
Yeah, the 49ers, the Broncos, the Browns, they do not pick until round 3.
Yes.
So that would be difficult.
Right. The Rams are at pick 36. I want to say, that's prime territory to get into the first round and maybe get a guy you want. But also, I want to go for a team that's trying to rebuild. Are we really going to give up picks to move up 6 spots and do all that type of stuff? I don't know. I don't know if I envision that either. So I'm going to say none of them. I don't think any of them are diving back into this.
They're just chilling.
Well, and I also think like teams like the 49ers and the Dolphins, they're going, wait, our team's good. We don't need to spend any more money on a high pick or whatever. We're set. We just got to find some people to round out our roster and depth and, maybe a hidden gem or whatever else.
I mean, what a great time for them. The 49ers, the Broncos, the Browns. I mean, they're just chilling. They're basically just relaxing.
Well, and
they didn't have to worry about any of those top guys.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're close friends with Kyle. Does he still look at the top guys just to be familiar with them?
Definitely. Like, is he in every, nook and cranny of them like he would be if they had a first round pick? No, but he's definitely.
So he'll be ready if Tyree Wilson falls to round 3. He'll be like, hey, I've seen tape on this guy.
I watched him. Yeah. Most times they're not. These guys watch it all because you don't know. Year 3, hey, this guy could become available. So it just at least sets a base mark, even though you're not going to get him to go, or a baseline of like, hey, I know what this guy is. I studied him a little bit, and of course even comes in handy when you play him. But that's what's funny is the teams that don't have a pick, we talked about the 49ers and the Dolphins. And then you even throw the Broncos and the Browns, and I sit there and go, those are some teams that they don't have a lot of holes. Out of all the teams not picking in the first round, the Rams are the only team I look at to go, man, it really sucks that they don't have anything in the first round because they really need it. Those other teams, they're in pretty good spots.
It's worked out for them, even though if the 49ers could go back in time, they would not make that trade for Trey Lance. When you think about that trade, I was thinking about this the other day. 2 first-round picks, and then using a first-round pick. So basically, you use 3 first-round picks on Trey Lance.
Right.
And if he doesn't play for them, I mean, I don't know, like all-time busts, but normally when a guy just is the number 1 pick in busts, we're like, oh, that was an all-time bust. This is not only just a top pick, but it's 2 additional picks on top of that.
Yeah, no, it's, I think it'll be up there. It really will be as far as in the lures. The thing that'll save them to where, like you said, it's not the number 1 pick, and it's like different than like Jamarcus Russell with like the Raiders, right? Where it's like, well, yeah, and the team sucked for those few years
Right.
and the years after him because of it. The 49ers, it's like, yeah, that doesn't look good. But they're also going to sit there and go, yeah, but we go to the NFC Championship game anyway, so deal with it.
Which can be almost more painful because you're like, man, think how good we really could be.
Agreed.
Just
I
three
know.
first-round picks.
I know it's
But it
definitely
hasn't
going to be an ugly mark on Shanahan's resume when all said and done. But the one thing I respect about him, knowing him, John Lynch, is like they're not afraid, like we've seen over this past week, to rip the Band-Aid off and go, hey, we made a mistake and we got to move on, right? So we'll see where that goes. I think ultimately, though, no one's going to trade for Trey Lance. He's going to be there on the 49ers.
You don't
football
think
team.
anyone?
I don't think so. It just it's like, wait, why don't the 49ers like you?
Yeah,
They gave you all
yeah.
this stuff to get you, and they don't want you?
Yeah,
That scares people.
You don't know what you're getting.
Exactly.
If you're a team trading
and
for
then
him.
to our conversation earlier, it's like, well, he hasn't played in forever. And now he's going to come down here and, take over the team. I just find that highly unlikely. So, yeah, I don't see that happening.
So we're making all these predictions. You did your first-round mock draft, and I want to let you know it's time for our biggest draft predictions now. Brought to you by Xfinity. The biggest sports moments deserve a connection you can count on. Streaming live sports is better with Xfinity 10G network. Our answer is here. Our next sponsor is ourselves, Comcast Xfinity.
Boom.
We were asking that question on Monday. Well,
I
who's
like
going to be
it.
our next sponsor?
Yeah.
Us.
I like it.
Xfinity, welcome to the club.
Welcome Xfinity. We're glad to have you. That's awesome.
So you might not be familiar with Chris, though, Xfinity, because that's what Chris does, is just make bold predictions all the time. So we don't even need a special segment for that. But if we were to make two bold predictions for tomorrow, I'll make mine first.
Yeah, I like
It's
it.
about my Detroit Lions, who have
Right.
2 picks in the first round. You got 6 and you got 18. My bold prediction is that at 6, quarterback Anthony Richardson will be on the board, and they will select him. Dan Campbell will say, that's my guy. And Holmes will lock him in, and the Lions will have their quarterback of the future, learning under Jared Goff.
Wow, that's that would be bold. It really would be. That'd be shocking to me. And again, it's not crazy, your thought. I mean, we know quarterback has got to be on the radar to a degree. Damn, you're just going to put the pressure on your quarterback just like that, Jared Goff. Damn.
No, he's still the guy.
You're on,
You know, we still
you're
like
on
him.
notice.
No, it'll be like a Jordan Love situation. If he keeps playing well, Anthony Richardson will just wait in the wings. But
Okay, all right. So that's your bold prediction.
That's my bold prediction.
There'd be an offense. You talked about before, right? Like, I mean, offensive line. We know they can run the ball, right? They're very comfortable in the physical style of offensive football, where they would certainly be able to formulate an offense around him and do that. That's bold.
Yeah, even with Jared Goff, I have faith in Ben Johnson being able to figure out some plays for Anthony Richardson there. So there's my bold prediction.
Okay, I like that. That's a good bold prediction. I think the one that I want to go with right off the bat is just that Bijan Robinson will go in the top 10.
Ooh.
Right? I don't know if that's that bold anymore, but to say a running back will definitely go in the top 10, and I do think it's Atlanta 8, Philadelphia 10, but we haven't seen a running back go in the top 10 since who? Ezekiel Elliott or Saquon Barkley. So that's the last one. That was 5 years ago, right? That would be the one there. And then my other bold prediction, I'm going to go 2 because I'm bold, okay, Xfinity,
We know that.
is that Jaxon Smith-Njigba falls out of the top 15.
Whoa. Well, that's what you have in your mock.
Yeah, I'm going to say it. I think, I think it, I don't know. There's just a part of me that thinks, yes, he's viewed up in that range by a lot of teams, but I think when it comes time to make the pick, and if the board just falls a little one way, I think teams are going to get cold feet on it and not do it.
I actually thought you were going to say he's going to fall out of the first round.
No, I
which is
won't
what
do
went,
that.
Whoa,
I
and then
won't
you
do
go,
that.
He
No.
will fall out of the top 5. Unbelievable.
He won't be pick number 1.
All right, so that's it. Thank you, Comcast Xfinity, for employing us and sponsoring the pod. And we have done it now. We have finished draft season officially. Now that's all that's left to do is to actually draft the players.
And then talk about the draft
And
on
then talk
some
about-
Monday,
yeah, that's
and then
true.
Wednesday, and talk
then
about
start
it a little more.
ranking your quarterbacks that are
Oh,
currently
yeah,
in the
great.
NFL.
Here we go. Yep, here we go.
It never ends. But we'll be at your place Thursday, and for the first time here at NBC, we'll have some, not live reactions, but we'll get them out.
Live to tape.
We'll get them out that night. And
Yeah.
so in the morning, Friday morning, when you're driving to work or just sitting there in bed, You can listen to Chris Sims react to maybe every draft pick.
I
We
think
don't know
we're gonna
exactly
do
how we're
every
going to do
one,
it, but yeah, every single one.
You're gonna have 31, standalone videos. Me and Ahmed breaking down the pick.
Yeah, and it will be all together for an audio and video pod, I think, too. So
Yep.
it'll be. This is my dream, that you hear the pick, Roger Goodell say it, and then it just goes right to Chris, like, oh my gosh, and that's just like 15 of the 31 times. Like, what?
I like
They're doing that.
Well, and
Yeah.
then if it's a different year now. Here we're on camera.
Yeah,
Pressure's on me.
I know.
Damn, I guess I can't smoky and drinky during the draft. I don't know what to do.
Maybe not as much.
Or maybe not as much. Maybe just I'll just curtail it a little bit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, cut it down.
They got
Everyone knows.
Visine and all that stuff
That's
now.
true. It'll
Nobody,
be a filter, right? Are we on Zoom, right? Can you do some sort of
My barn's
fine-tuning?
dark. I'm going to keep it real dark so you guys can't really see my eyes, all right?
So I'm looking forward to that again. Thanks to the Sims family for inviting us over again and having us there because it's a fun time.
It is a fun time. I love draft night. I really do. It's a long night, and it's a quick turnaround to get up and do the shows Friday morning with Florio. But, man, the intrigue just kills me.
Yeah.
It really does. And then, just, of course, some of the people I know in football – finally I'm going to get to see what they really wanted to do, because I don't ask my friends, like, I'm not like, Kyle, who you picking? Or, hey, who you, they're not going to be my friends if they, so I don't do that. We talk about football. We talk about players in general. Do I have a feel of who they like and whatever else? But no, I don't even want to know the specific guy they're exactly going to take.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Have you ever been misled or lied to by people in the NFL? Maybe not your close friends, but people in the community.
Well, some would say Kyle Shanahan misled me a few years ago in the draft.
That wasn't
Mac Jones, Trey Lance.
I wasn't necessarily going there, but
No.
I mean, like,
No, that wasn't even, again, that wasn't misled. That was me going down a path of, I thought I knew my friend.
Yeah.
I do know my friend. He just changed his mind on me a little bit late in the process.
which does have, right? It's
It
like
does.
things change, and if you're not,
I definitely-
every day be like, hey, what are you thinking now? What are you thinking now?
Yeah, I've had some teams over the years, I feel like, fibbed to me a little bit.
Like, we don't like this guy, and then they end up taking him.
Yeah. Or they've left him out of the conversation. I was like, damn, we talked about that position like 7 times. You never brought that guy's name up. Like, what the f? And they, they're like, oh, hey, I know we didn't want to give you a tell or anything there by just getting in the conversation. You tell we like him or whatever.
Yeah. So that's
right?
really why you stop. I mean, you would never want to ask him anyway.
I'm just not that. That's not my job. I don't want to sit here and break news, as I've always said. A lot of these guys are not going to be my friends if they know I'm always chasing a story.
Yeah.
Right? I talk ball with them before the draft. I'll talk ball with them a little today. Some of them. I had a few call me this morning even before. But I'm not going to go like, hey, who you picking? Right? It's just going to be general football talk, things they've heard around the league. They might ask me about something I've heard, and it'll go from there.
All right. Let's do it.
Let's do it, baby.
Let's meet at your place.
All right, meet at my
tomorrow.
place. Ahmed will be hopefully wearing his red pants in my barn next tomorrow.
absolutely.
He
Guaranteed.
has to, right?
Guaranteed.
He has to. But everybody, you know where to find us. You'll know where to find our videos. We'll be on social media live, Thursday night during the draft at CSims Unbuttoned, at CSimsQB on Twitter, at Sims Unbuttoned on Instagram.
Yeah.
We'll be there for all reactions. Subscribe, rate, review. Enjoy the draft. It should be fun. Ahmed and I releasing videos, video gold all night long. Peace out, everybody. Good luck to your team. Hope you enjoy. We'll talk to you Monday. Clap it up.
Clap it up.
Yo. Thanks for watching, homies. It's the off season, but there's no off season for us here at Unbuttoned. Me, Ahmed Fareed, we're going to hit all the stories. So hit subscribe for us, okay? We got a ton coming up. My draft prospect rankings, my Sims top 40 quarterback countdown, and videos of me and NFL QBs playing catch and talking about their development and mechanics. Again, thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe. Peace out, homies. See you soon.